the Tesla's a really beautiful, a charger with a nice glass panel on it, but unless you've got a Tesla car, some of the functionality is pretty limited. Look, having a hardwired connection, being built in New Zealand, they're thin, sleek, they work with your Tesla, all round, they're a great charger.
Went straight down to my warehouse, heated up the chamber, tested this within about an hour. It derated from 32 amps down to 6 amps. You hated this when it came out.
I hated it, but look, I would say hate's a strong word.
Okay, Yorick, and we're in here today to talk about, what do you think?
EV charging. One of my favourite topics.
Me too. I've spent a ridiculous amount of time down in my warehouse testing these products and pressure testing them, heat testing them. We'll get into that in a minute. But I thought it'd be good to just give this isn't a real deep dive into every charger because we don't have 12 hours.
No.
But to give a bit of an overview about different chargers to say, what would we buy? What do we recommend?
Yeah, and what mistakes we've learned along the way.
What mistakes both of us have actually made along the way.
Yeah,
definitely. And what would we do different? What charger would we buy next time around, I guess?
Exactly. There's always the time for round two.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so basically we start off with your El Cheapo Amazon buy, a couple of $100.
$100, 300-400 or something like that.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things I definitely wouldn't use as a permanent home solution. It's fine to have in the car for when you do a bit of a trip and visit your grandmother and you want to charge at, her place. But there's definitely better chargers on the market. I think, sure, they're fine, but the price makes me wonder where they've cut corners.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you say that, right? Because when I actually got this, one of our guys had that charger, and he just keeps it in the boot for emergency. That's what these chargers are for, right? And I thought, I'm going to test this thing, and I'm going to burn it up. I'll catch it on fire by charging it for too long, running at temperature. Guess what? It didn't at all. It ran really cool. So when we did some safety tests on it, it failed one of them. I won't get into that at the moment.
Sure.
But it actually is a fairly decent charger. It surprises me that it can run at 16 amps for 2 or 3 hours at 35 degrees and not derate.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, they're relatively simple units, but look, there's a few things that I definitely would recommend instead of a cheap Amazon charger. Look, spend a little bit extra, get the Tesla wall connector, also Tesla portable charger. These are, I think a much better built unit. They've got custom tails depending on the wattage that you're running at.
Yeah, so pull the tail out. Show us what you mean.
It's in there pretty solidly. So basically, you can have a 15 amp. There's a 10 amp. Look, we even tested a 32 amp, plug on it. It ran 7 kilowatts for multiple hours without derating as well.
Yeah.
Look, most actually of us were quite surprised about that. And I think you're getting a much more solid unit than from maybe a no-name brand. You're getting something that is well backed. The other thing that I wouldn't recommend you do with a portable charger, if you do need to charge from a 10 amp outlet, get yourself a proper adapter, something that'll go from 10 amps to 15 amps with a circuit breaker in it. Don't just use an adapter cable like this, because your cable's not designed to handle those currents for long periods of time.
And Tesla does that properly. That's what the adapter is.
Correct.
For, right?
Yeah, so you've got a 15 amp plug, you've got a 10 amp plug, you can buy a 32 amp plug, and the charger itself knows what you've plugged it into and won't exceed that current, even if you try to.
Mm-hmm. That 32 amp, it's a shame you didn't bring it in, but there's this big plug adapter, 32 amp like that, that you can plug in, which your dad bought, right?
Yeah, so he did a trip out to Uluru in the middle of the desert, and basically when you head a bit further west, there's not a lot of EV chargers around, so having something that's a little bit quicker than your 10 amp or 15 amp cable is a big help. But yeah, no, he said that it worked really well.
Yeah, I was surprised, and when you got it, you called up, and I'm like, that's not going to work. You're like, and you brought it around and proved me wrong.
Yeah, so, I thought exactly the same thing. I was very pleasantly surprised. But it's as well as these things are built, they're not designed for a permanent solution. They're a portable charger for a reason. They're really there for if you're doing a long road trip, or if you run into issues, you've got a backup solution there.
Yeah, and this is really the problem that I've got with 10 amp or 15 amp charging, is a 10 amp or a 15 amp power point at your house is fine to use for whatever, half an hour or whatever you're doing,
Correct.
At running at 10 amps. You hardly ever run your power point at 10 amps full. And so here's a power point that I've pulled apart. And this is the terminals inside, and this is what you're connecting to. This tiny little fidgety.
Yep.
And, if we plug it in, it's just this tiny little contact that I should have pulled apart before, but this tiny little contact that it's connecting to. Oh, yeah, you got one there, yeah. Okay. And that contact there is just not that great to be running for, because you're running at 15 amps for, 6 hours you can be over.
Oh, look,
sort of
10 amps, you'd be doing it for
24
12,
hours.
16, depends, basically whenever you're at home.
Yeah.
The other thing is worth keeping in mind too, look, when you've got a dedicated charger like any of the other ones on the table here, it's a dedicated circuit, it's protected, you don't have a bunch of other appliances all trying to use the same cable. I mean, you've got a couple of cables to show there as well. So not only are you running the high-powered EV charger, which is going to basically max out that plug, you also have got possibly a fridge, or you might have a space heater. Let's say the garage is on the same circuit as a bedroom and you put the heater on, you might trip that, and not only will your car not get charged, but you're basically stressing.
Yeah. And we'll get into cable sizes later, but that is an important point. If you are doing it just as a backup even, potentially a dedicated power point in your garage, a 15 amp power point, I would, just because you can. Again, the issue, nice weatherproof power point, which you may want, but then your charge cable is hanging outside of it,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you've got a short tail, especially with the Tesla portable chargers, there's a lot of weight on these. It is very well worth having this, supported in a way that you're not hanging it from the actual charge port itself. Doubly so if it's on a weatherproof unit.
And here's an example of that. On my wedding day, we had had a caterer around the local church, a real small setup, and I got a call because the hot water system had burnt out, and it was a 10 amp element plugged into a 10 amp power point. So running at max, but hot water system runs for 2 or 3 hours to heat, and in fact, probably not even that long. But over the time, it just burnt out. These little contacts, the little terminals, just burnt out. It's not a permanent solution at 15 amps or 10 amps.
And this is a conversation we've had many times. I like having a backup option for my EV charger, which is a 15 amp. But after hearing that story, I go, well, we definitely don't want that happening.
Not on the wedding day.
No, it's not on a wedding day.
Great.
Well, any day it's not a good thing to happen. But this is the thing. Look, it's good to have a backup. But if you're living with an EV charger, so you're living with an EV at home, you want something that's going to basically handle the full current permanently where it can, and something that's a dedicated charger so that you can get home, plug in, and you've got something reliable.
Now let's move up in cost. So we started off, I don't know, $300 or $400 or something.
Yeah, I think we're
moving
up
up
to
to
250, maybe 500, 550.
Something like that. We're not here to give you prices, but that sort of price, step up another $300 or something like that, just for the product itself. But you've got to have installation after this.
You do need a Sparky to put that in.
Yeah. A little bit ironic that Tesla's sitting right down here at the beginning.
Yeah.
When we've got it in order, is it because it's the worst one, or?
Well, no, not at all. Look, I actually think Tesla makes some of the best chargers you can buy, but they're also really well priced, which is a win-win. That said, though, look, what you save on money, you might lose on some features if you're not in the Tesla ecosystem. Look, there is definitely the benefit of, if you've got a Tesla car, you've got a charger with a little button on it to unlock the charge port, which is, a nice thing for sure. I mean, you want it to be easy. You don't want to have to get your phone out every time you want to unplug the car.
You and me agree on this, and it's sort of like a bells and whistles thing that you wouldn't think that would be such a big deal. But we both drive a Tesla.
Correct.
Just you go there, pick up your car, you press a little button, the charging cap, the petrol cap thing opens up, and you plug it in. And that's it. And
then you head off in the morning, you're in a rush, and you just grab the handle, you push the button, and it unplugs.
You don't have to get out your phone and open the app. And
you don't have to reach in and push the button on the screen. Look, simplicity is key. It's like plugging your phone, before you go to bed. All you want to do is just have it there ready to go, and it's simple.
Yeah,
simple is key, especially when you're talking EV charging.
Now, let's talk about the potential downside sometimes is solar surplus charging.
Correct.
Solar surplus charging is, okay, let's say I've got a 10 kilowatt system, but at the moment it's early in the morning and I'm only sending 3 kilowatts back to the grid. The smarts of a charger can say, well, let's just charge a car at 3 kilowatts, ramp up to 4 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts.
Yeah, and basically you're using your car as a battery. I mean, you're basically diverting that excess that you might only get a few cents per kilowatt hour for these days, and you're charging your car up. But, it's nice to be able to plug in and basically let the car eat up all that extra power that otherwise essentially...
And at the same time, not draw excess power.
Correct, yeah. You don't want to plug in and suddenly you're pulling it in at the full 35 cents or more kilowatt hour when you don't necessarily need to, because you've got all the time in the world to charge.
And the most important reason for that, for just charging up on solar, that smug feeling you've got of running on sunshine.
There's a good feeling about it, yeah. Especially when you know that it's all been covered by your own solar system.
And when you get your power bill in, and you're like, oh, well, I'm running a car and, charging off solar, so...
Exactly. But look, definitely the Tesla charger, if you've got a Tesla car, fantastic option. If you've got a Tesla battery, even better, because then you do get those features. But you have to have a Tesla car and you have to have a Tesla battery, and that's a good amount of money before you get those features.
Or you can hook into this third-party app called Charge HQ.
Correct.
That you're now paying for. It's not a bad idea, but not a... If solar surplus charging is the idea and you don't have a Tesla car and Tesla battery, that's when we start.
Yeah, again, it comes to the simplicity thing. I think if you're having to pay a subscription service to get these types of features, that's eating into the savings you get from having it on charge on solar.
Yeah.
Now, then we move into something that's made just across the pond, the Evnex Charger. This is a really nice, sleek, simple charger. It has a button on the front of it that lets you unlock your Tesla car, which is, again, one of the most popular EVs on the market. It's made across in New Zealand. And Mark, you said you had a few dot points you wanted to talk about with that one?
Yeah. Well, let's go back, because one thing that I've done with all of these chargers is, there's all features and the functions of the app and stuff like that. But what I like to do with inverters generally, I thought, how do I test a charger? So over the last couple of years, I've worked out, pressure testing,
Yeah,
so,
if it's out of the sun, gets too hot garage, especially in a summer's day.
Yeah, and none of these chargers should be installed in the sun, I found out.
No.
As in they will derate. So a little bit of sun in the afternoon is not the end of the world, but you shouldn't be installing them in the sun, because 32 amps is a lot of power, right? Especially 32 amps, 3-phase is a lot of power. Heat comes off them and they start to derate. So what I've done is built a little box down in my warehouse and put a heater in it and a thermostat. So it runs at about 35, 38 degrees, whatever it is.
Correct.
And then I run these at full capacity and see how long it takes to derate. I can actually derate the Tesla charger. It derates down to 25 amps. It does derate down to it, but that's after really heating her up as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking extreme cases here, but it is interesting to see that, look, even in a, if it's a hot afternoon, you've got a west or north facing garage where your garage is getting to 40 degrees, which is, look, not uncommon.
Yeah, well, that derating is good, but for me, it's more about, did they build this thing properly in the first place?
Yep.
And that might sound bad that it derated down to 26, but we've got a story about that in a second.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was a pass for me. It derated down to 26 amps when I just heated the bugger up and ran well. So
yeah, I mean, look, they're a really solid charger, simple, affordable.
Built by Tesla, need to say more, right?
Yeah, they're a really nice charger. Shall we move on to the Evnex next?
Yep.
So, made in New Zealand, has the button for unlocking your Tesla, which is quite a rare feature I found, especially talking to a few different manufacturers. Now, it might do that to other cars as well in the future, but what do we really like about them?
What I think I really like about this is that it's got a SIM card built into it.
Yes.
So we don't have to connect it to Wi-Fi.
No, and also customer support is a very big part of what we do, but also Evnex. It's critical if you have even a minor hiccup, that these things can be looked at remotely. If it's a case where it has to be replaced under warranty, it's all covered for parts and labor, and it's simple to diagnose.
Yeah. And to be fair, we have not installed many of these for a reason, not because I don't think it's a bad charger. We'll get onto that in a minute, and so we don't really know the support, but I do kind of understand the setup over there in New Zealand and what they're trying to achieve and the support network they're building around the product. I rate this charger. I really like the app. Got everything you want to have an app. 4G wins it for me,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
4G also, unlike a lot of the other models, it'll basically tell you what your carbon footprint is, and that's a really interesting feature, especially for fleet crews. Now, I mean, most of our customers aren't necessarily running fleets from their home, but if you had a few different electric vehicles and you wanted to keep track on what you were doing for the environment, that
tells you. Yeah, it can tell you whether you're running off. The grid is running off coal or gas or solar or wind or whatever.
Correct.
pretty cool, interesting feature. The way they're heading. Really like the company.
Oh, incredibly thin. They're good looking machines as well. Like Tesla, you can get a few different covers for them. This one's white, which is the most classic color. You can get these in grey, sand dune. Customizability is a nice feature, but obviously that's an aesthetics choice.
Yeah. The other thing is the way they connect and monitor how much power you're sending back is wired. So we don't do this wireless connectivity, which wireless connectivity is great for convenience until it doesn't work.
We did a little bit of testing with that, actually. It's interesting you mentioned that because, both the Tesla and the Wattpilot, which we'll get onto shortly, they basically both rely on being connected to the internet to control your charge on solar. And what happens if the internet just drops out? It happens, even to the best of us. So, and then all of a sudden you lose that feature entirely. So, look, having a hardwired connection, being built in New Zealand, they're thin, sleek, they work with your Tesla, all round, they're a great charger.
It's kind of like set and forget. You do it properly the first time and it just keeps on working. And if it doesn't, I'm believing the story about the support. We've not needed to call on it.
Well, that's good. I mean, if we haven't needed the support, it's better to have the support but not need it, than to need it and then not have it. On that topic, Myenergi.
Right.
Zappi.
Yes.
Interesting topic. So I have a Zappi at home. I've had it now for about 4 years. Basically, I put it in even before I had the electric car because I knew I was going to get one.
Yep.
I think you have a Zappi down at the office.
I've got two. I've got one in the office here and one in the warehouse just next door.
Yep.
And I've got this one. You know why I've got this one?
Why?
Because it failed. My first one failed.
That seems to be a story that I'm hearing a little bit more often. I've already had 2 warranty cases with mine. I've had one replaced and then I had a cable replaced. Now, very fair to say, I was well looked after as a customer. But it's a case where we shouldn't be seeing them fail as regular as we are.
Yeah. And it's not just me and you, right? It's Finn Peacock, which many might know from Solar Quotes, had issues, but I've had friends that are having the same issues.
Yeah.
So I thought, I wonder whether this actually is where my pressure testing idea started, right?
Yes.
And I was putting them in a hot box or leaving it out in the sun and seeing this fella derate. I'm thinking, holy dooly, what's going on here? So this is going to be a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to cut it short. So I did a video on this, and these contactors here are really heating up. And look how this fella's built. It's like, me and my mad scientist friend from high school, got together and went to a wholesaler and got some contactors and put it in there. I thought, I don't know, is that good? It's like a big engine bay, or is that bad? But the fact it's overheating, and these contactors are really burning up and overheating. So I've got another whole video explaining that, and we'll put a link up there or somewhere if you want to check that out. So we put that video out, and I just sort of said, I don't like this charger at all. The way it's built and it's derating, I can tell that this is just not a great product.
Yeah.
Like these things get so hot they almost burn you when you touch them. And so they pushed a couple of different firmware updates, and I was working with them thinking, well, maybe it's just a bug and maybe we can sort that out. And I released the video after a while thinking, well, I still haven't sorted it out.
Yeah.
When they do, I'll recant, And,
of course.
But in the meantime, I got a phone call from them, and this is a story that I've been meaning to tell. And they got on the phone, we're all nice, and then they said, we might have to talk to our lawyers, get our lawyers involved about your YouTube reviews. And I'm like, this old chestnut again.
Yeah, it sounds like Solar Edge all over again. We've been there once before,
But to be fair, I'm like, okay, they think I've done something wrong. They think I didn't push the latest firmware update. If that's true, you can bugger off your lawyers. I don't really care about your lawyers, but I want to know what it is. So this was hilarious. I went straight down, had a busy day. I'm like, I really want to know this. Went straight down to my warehouse, heated up the chamber, tested this. Within about an hour, it derated from 32 amps down to 6 amps.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like I've never seen anything.
Yeah. I mean, what's 6 amps? 3 kilowatts on 3 phase? Less than all this will output. That is unfortunate. I mean, look, one thing we can say about Zappi, incredibly feature rich. They've got an app tie in with smart charging things, but it's hard to recommend a product that's not reliable or not consistently reliable.
Yeah, all the gear and no idea is what you would say. And they can shove their lawyers too, by the way. So,
I mean, look, the reality is that we've lived with it, and this is truly, we're not making this up. It's just a matter of fact that I've had 2 warranty claims with my unit. You've had at least one with yours.
I had one myself, yeah.
Yeah, and we know of multiple other people who've had similar experiences. Now, again, it's all been covered under warranty. They've done it. They looked after me really well, but not quite good enough.
So I get a lot of comments on that last video that I did about it. I think we need to tone it down. People will go, "Oh, I don't know. I never see it deraining," and maybe you don't, or maybe you don't.
I've never seen mine derate at home, but mine's in a cool, garage. It's on a south-facing wall in the garage. My garage does not get very hot.
Yeah, and maybe you're not monitoring it that closely to watch it derate, or maybe it's a different model without these contactors.
Yeah, mine's a single-phase unit, not a 3-phase unit.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm still using it in my. I haven't changed it over here. It's still running, and I've got one over in the warehouse.
And I've still got mine at home. I really like the charger for that, as a functionality. And look, I like the fact you can hang the cable over it. It's quite a function. It's got a screen on it, unlike all the other options that we have. So, I mean, for a while, I was basically using the screen on my Zappi to monitor my solar output because it gives me a snapshot right then and there. So, there's a lot of things I really like about that charger. It's got lots of great features. But the derating is a real concern.
But here's the question: would you buy it again? No. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I wouldn't either. So, I had this at home. Now I've got the Tesla at home, but I also, because I test chargers at home as well. But I've also got. Let's move on to
Wattpilot. Yeah, now this is a really interesting charger, and I think it's very fair to say that I have mixed opinions on this charger. Functionality, if you've got a Fronius inverter and you're thinking you might get a Fronius paired battery, fantastic.
BYD battery, yep.
BYD. It shows up on your monitoring. You can set priorities between your battery and your EV car, or basically your car. It's a nice, small, compact unit. Now, there's a few things that I don't love about it. I don't love the fact that the cable hangs out the top and there's nowhere to sort of hang your charge port and that you have to supply a Type 2 to Type 2 cable. But that's also pros and cons. If you have a charge cable break like I did on my Zappi, which was one of my warranty cases, where you just buy another one. You pick them up for a few $100, super cheap auto. Wattpilot Go. I think I'm a converted man.
You hated this when it came out.
I hated it, but look, I would say hate's a strong word.
It was true.
I had mixed, very, very conflicted feelings about it. But it's interesting. As I said, as we were talking about the Tesla portable charger, I did not know. Look, I've done some long road trips. I've gone from Brisbane all the way to the Great Ocean Road in an electric car. I like to think that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about when it comes to this thing. But when I found out that as soon as you go even a little bit more inland, most of the chargers available are basically 32 amps, 5-pin plugs. That'll let you charge your car at 3-phase, 32 amps, if your car can handle that much. And that's a great feature. And it's, I think, if we're fortunate enough to have a holiday home, well, you've got one charger, you can just take it with you, and all you need is a plug.
Yeah, and we installed one around the corner for a business that he has. We installed an outlet, a 32 amp 3-phase outlet on his wall at work and one at home. And so then he only has to buy one charger, integrates with his Fronius inverter. You've got to be fair. That's not the most beautiful thing hanging on the side.
It's not. It's not. And this is the thing. But look, it's sometimes a case where it's function over form. I mean, the Tesla's a really beautiful a charger with a nice glass panel on it, but unless you've got a Tesla car, some of the functionality is pretty limited. But where's the nice middle point? I think it, like with a lot of these things, it really depends on your circumstance. Really, which is the best charger comes down to what's best for you with your situation, with your solar system, and what features you need out of it.
I should mention too the build quality of it, and surprise, Fronius built it, and it's just a beast of a charger.
Solid unit.
You heat it right up; it doesn't derate. It's around about the same as the Tesla. It does derate down to sort of 26 amps, I think, if I really push the temperature.
That's still a decent amount of power flowing through that.
And it's just, you look at this and I'm like, gee, I could do that, I could make this thing. Not quite. But you look at it, it's Fronius, and you're like, that's where 75 years of engineering comes from,
And actually, the other thing that's also worth talking about is, let's say you do have let's say you run an Airbnb, or you have your charger at your office and you want to share the charger, but you don't want to share it with everybody in the public. Look, one of the nice things with the Wattpilot and also the Evnex Charger and the Tesla Charger, the Wattpilot comes with little RFID tags, which I really like. So you can have that on your keychain.
Which is just to unlock it so that you can use it, yeah.
Yeah, so identify it. I mean, Tesla, you can lock it to just to be your specific car. Evnex lets you do something in the app where you can sort of unlock it temporarily or lock it temporarily if you go away for a while. I don't think any of those features are evident in the Zappi, or obviously the portable chargers don't have that function either.
Yeah. So it is sort of horses for courses. If I were to do it again, I've already got this up. Actually, to be honest with you, I charge at work most of the time.
Correct.
And I like my Tesla charger, so if I need a quick charge in the middle of the day on the weekend, I'll just chuck that in. But, objectively, in my situation, with the Fronius inverter, I would go Fronius.
And that's what I would recommend to most people for sure.
Yeah. And you?
For me, I would recommend the Tesla portable charger, so the Tesla wall connector for my house. I've got Tesla Powerwall, I've got a Tesla car. It's like Apple. If you're part of the ecosystem, it all just works, and it works really well. But yeah, no, that's the way I would go today.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, I think that's a wrap, Yoz, so thanks for coming in.
Oh, well, pleasure, Mark.
Thanks, mate.
Always good to see you.